Hey, Aaron LaPlante here from the Santa Barbara Soaring Association. I just wanted to make a quick video, both for the people involved in this Carpinteria Rincon Trail project to show how the wind will be affected by the project and to help update the community members, the pilots, because I know there's lots of questions and we can include some visuals here on what the proposal will look like and our suggestions and some things that have come up at some of the meetings. So for one, the bike path, this is all about preserving free flight at Bates Bluff. And this bike path proposal, this is the main bluff we fly here, is proposed to come in about somewhere in here. It'll go down even with the parking lot. That's 16 feet wide plus a 6-foot swath cut. So I think it's a total of 22 feet wide of a bike path right there. And then there's going to be a 12-foot wide drainage bench right around in here, and then it'll come up over the top. And then they're also gonna reduce the grade, the slope of this whole bluff from about 3/4 one that it is now to about 1-to-1 is what it said in the report. They're also going to remove these old retaining walls. These retaining walls were from the old Coast Highway back before the 101 freeway when it went up here. These are also a great generator of lift because they're vertical walls, but they will be removed. So we just want to make sure we're included, that free flight is included in the environmental impact report, because it definitely, as proposed, will change how the air hits this bluff and creates a lift so that hang gliders and paragliders can fly. So thanks for tuning in. So we do have hang gliders and paragliders, which are a form of free flight, meaning they are non-motorized. They require some kind of air currents to stay aloft. And we have a jewel of a place to do it right here in Carpinteria. Amazing place. This bluff that 95% of the free flying happens at is the 100-yard bluff located between the railroad tracks on the west end over here and the Rincon parking lot on the east end over here. So this stretch of bluff right in between. And the reason this works so perfect is because every day a west-southwest wind pulls into Carpinteria just about every day. And that wind is usually 8, 9, 10 miles per hour. And when that wind is perpendicular and hits this bluff, it deflects straight up and creates a lift band that we can soar in. So it's a great place for beginners, very laminar, very smooth, very safe. Beginners can make turns real nice and close to the bluff, stay tight and stay aloft. And even veterans have been doing it for dozens of years, find tons of pleasure in floating around out here and just enjoying the beauty of the day. So it's quite the jewel and the mecca spot we have right here, and people have been flying here for over 30 years. So how this lift works is ridge lift is what we're looking for, or orographic lift is a scientific name for it. And several things affect it. The wind velocity affects it, the wind direction affects it, the hill size, the hill angle, and hill disruptors on the hill all affect how much lift you're going to get at the top of this hillside. So in a perfect scenario, we have a clean, nice, almost vertical cliffside. We have wind that comes, compresses against it, and deflects upwards. And this is the lift part where we're soaring in, motorless aircraft right here. So let's get some real-time examples. So we have like Torrey Pines, about in San Diego, which is the next closest soaring site south of here on the coast, which is all the way in San Diego. So we'd hate to lose Bates because the next one down is Torrey Pines in San Diego. But it's about a 300-foot high cliff, very tall, almost vertical, no obstructions on it, and a perpendicular wind only takes about 6 miles an hour in order for a hang glider or paraglider to stay up. And that is because it's so tall and unobstructed and has a steep angle. The taller the cliff, the less wind you will need to create that lift, because it compresses against each other. So More Mesa, right up the road, is only about a 110-foot cliff. Same thing, unobstructed from the beach up, very steep, and only takes about 8 miles an hour perpendicular wind to deflect against this and keep a paraglider or hang glider aloft. And then we have Bates Bluff, which is significantly higher than More Mesa, about 160 feet, depending on where you measure the top of this west-southwest facing bluff. but it requires about 10 miles an hour of wind to stay aloft, 9-10 miles an hour. A little bit more than More Mesa. And the reason being is because of this old railroad cut. I think this was abandoned in the 70s. But this was the old railroad cut that's cut into this cliff. So the this bench here. So the wind hits this, it disrupts it. It has to reorganize against this cliff and then go up again. So it takes a little more wind to create that same amount of lift. It's kind of like a rock in the water. It creates an eddy. So the water gets turbulent and mixed up behind the rock and then takes a little while longer to organize itself and go downstream smoothly again. So because of that bench, it takes just a little bit more wind to get up. But this bench isn't so prominent also because of how much vegetation has grown, so that deflects the wind a little more up. It's not a perfectly flat cut anymore. So it's a little less prominent than if it were a super flat cut, affecting the wind. So here's just a side profile. This is the old railroad cut. It's lower down, so it's in the bottom quarter, maybe bottom third currently. So when the air comes up and hits it and flows over it, it's turbulent for a bit, reorganizes, but it has quite a bit of cliff to reorganize itself and create lift again. In the new proposal, there's a double cut and much bigger cut, and it's higher up on the cliff face. So they're raising the new bike path 40 feet above the old railroad track cut. And it's going to be 16 feet wide as the bike path length with a 6-foot swath, I think, for drainage. So 22 feet wide total. So that air is going to roll over. It's going to take a lot longer to reorganize. These two hill angles are also going to be reduced in angle to a 1-to-1, from a 3/4 1 to a 1-to-1. So they'll be a little shallower, not creating as much lift. And then it's going to roll over this drainage one, which is 16 feet wide, this drainage bench. And then hopefully get back together and create lift. So I think on these, under 12-mile-an-hour days, it's going to have a hard time creating this nice smooth lift at the top because it's going to get chewed up and eaten up by these benches. So like I said, yeah, bike path, and this is the drainage bench. This area also can create turbulence. I dramatize it here. This probably won't happen. But what will happen, more than likely, is lots of, unexpected landings really quick on this busy bike path, because they get, especially beginners, they'll get in this area, they won't know what to do, they're going down, they're just going to land right here. And that could be an interesting issue if bikes are going really fast on that path. So that's another thing we need to think about, be cognizant of. So here is the proposed new bike path. It goes behind this current area where we launch, which is all good, doesn't affect us much. I think they're removing a lot of dirt here, but then the bridge goes across the railroad track. They're going to remove a ton of dirt from the shoulder. I think the total amount of dirt is like 100,000 cubic tons. I think that's like 3,000 truckloads or something. But anyways, and then you could see this cut, this line here is the old railroad cut. So they're going to build this bottom bench up higher to the bike path. And that bike path will have a 5% grade, which meets ADA compliance, which is some of the reason why they had to do this, to get the funding for ADA. And it'll go all the way down to the parking lot. So the original proposal in 2015 kept the bike path along this old railroad bench, which we didn't have much of an issue with because it wasn't going to be much different. Nothing above it was really going to change. But coming all the way out here for the switchback, there's a landslide area that they would have had to build a huge retaining wall, which would be graffiti prone. Sorry, and I think the nude sunbather group had an issue with it coming way out here. It was over their beach too. So anyways, it would have 180'd, then bridged across and came up. But they had to scratch that because they couldn't meet the 5% grade with ADA, and they would have to do too much work to reinforce this landslide area. Our first option, what we would like to see happen, is for this bike path to just go behind the bluff, between the freeway, next to the freeway along the black side, and pop out of the parking lot. That way it wouldn't affect any of the south side, the soaring potential. We wouldn't have to worry about any of our sport being degraded because of that. This some issues that have come up that Matt Roberts has been awesome in working with us. He's the Parks and Recs guy. Thanks to him, he's still working with us on all these. But he said that it would to attach the bike path to the wave overpass on the 101 would be a huge project with Caltrans that I don't know if it would ever happen because they'd probably have to reconstruct the whole bridge the way they do things. He also mentioned kind of a danger of having the bike path between the hillside and the 101 corridor. But they've done it beautifully in Summerlin, the Ortega Pass. If you notice, that bike path goes up and over between the hillside and the freeway. So I don't see why that would be a problem. I think the biggest issue is that they want the aesthetic piece of having the bike path with an ocean view. But we're only asking for about this 100 yards, maybe 200 yards all the way to the parking lot to divert the bike path. I mean, it's along the freeway all the way to La Conchita, and like I said, in Summerlin. So, construction-wise, I don't know why it'd be a big issue not to just go across here. Either have the bridge in the same place or move it over a bit to cross this gap and be on the backside of the bluff. That way, no flying would be affected on the front side. That's our first option. That would be our best choice. Here's an unofficial drawing of what the new path would look like, and you can see here's the old railroad track part down here. They're going to build it up another 40 feet, which they say this will be a bigger flying area for you guys. But with wind gradient, friction along the surface, the wind is always less near the surface. So if we average our 10, 11 miles an hour, which is barely soarable in the upper part, it's only going to be 4 or 5 miles an hour down here and will never really ever be soarable. We just need that smoother stuff coming all the way from the bottom to build it big enough and smooth enough to create a lift band. But anyway, so 40 feet higher, here's the bike path that's going to go here. They talked about possibly giving us a potential launch area right here that we can have. There's only going to be a 42-inch fence along the bike path, along this whole zone. No lamp posts or lights or lighting or anything. And then from this section, let's see, I can't remember what I put. From this section, let's see, right? Yeah, this whole top section is going to be graded. So remember, it's about 3/4 to 1 now. It's going to be graded to 1 to 1, so slightly less steep. So that will deflect the air different than it's being deflected now. This is the additional drainage bench, another 12-foot wide bench, and then this cuts up the shoulder. And so this is the big area where they're removing all the dirt, I think, in this side. So this might be slightly different too, as far as the way it catches the wind. But supposedly in the plans, the top of the ridge line will not change in height at all, but we will have these huge additional benches. So that's just going to cause the air to come in, tumble over this bench, reorganize, tumble over this bench, and then hopefully go upwards for some lift, which I think it's going to need significantly more wind to create that lift because of all these obstructions and the less steep angle. They're also removing the cement wall, the retaining wall that's down here, which is needed. We don't want it to fall on beachgoers, but that's a vertical wall that creates lots of lift for us now. So it does need to be noted in the environmental impact report that the wind, the lift that we use to fly in will definitely be affected by these changes. Our mitigation proposal, which the engineer said it is possible from a construction point of view, is to use a lot of this dirt instead of using 3,000 trucks to haul it away, to use this dirt to build this bluff up higher. Remember, a bigger surface would need less wind to create that lift. So if we max this bluff out however high we can go, I don't know, another 10 or 20 feet higher, or higher if we can go beyond that, I don't know, then that would be a huge mitigation in keeping our soaring alive there. And it doesn't seem like it'd be too big of an issue, considering that this used to all be part of the mountain connecting to this lower Rincon flank. Before the railroad came in and cut their piece, cut this one first, then they cut this one. Then the old Coast Highway cut the right in the top, and then the 101 removed all the dirt in between. So it was a mountain at one point, and we're just trying to add back a little bit. So with all that, we're just hoping that we could preserve free flight at Bates for years and years to come. It's a beautiful sport out there. It's been happening for 30 plus years. And I think there's different ways we could collaborate to keep it alive in the exact same way that's happening now. We don't want to just make it only happen on, you know, a day when it's blowing 15 or 20 miles an hour, which is a rare day in Santa Barbara. It's kind of like a surf break, you know. If you chop down half the reef that's making the break and you say it's still surfable, well, it may have been surfable on a 1 foot swell, but now it's only surfable on a 5 or 6 foot swell. So it'd be the same thing for us. You know, if you're saying it's still going to be flyable, it's going to be rare days when it's flyable if you make those changes the way they're proposed. So we thank you for your time, and please contact us if you have any questions. See ya.